Welcome to Speak Life. My name is Glen Scrivener, and I'm joined all the way from Perth, Western Australia, by Rory Shiner. G'day, Rory.
Hi, Glenn. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And we are connecting across the hemispheres to talk about your new book, which you've co-authored with Peter Orr. It's called The World Next Door, and I've read it. I've loved it. It is a meditation on the Apostles' Creed. Why on earth would you do such an arcane thing?
Thanks, Glenn. Really good to be here, and thanks for opening up this conversation. Yeah, it's a book that was written, co-authored with a friend of mine, Peter Orr, and we're both, in grew up in different places. He was in Northern Ireland, I was in Australia. But both have a bunch of people that we know and love, that we dearly love them to come to faith in Jesus and share in this good thing. And we thought we'd have a shot at writing a book. We thought there was some space there. There's lots of great books out there. We thought there was some space, and we tried a few different angles. We thought, how would we just want to have these people in our mind, our people we went to school with, parents and friends and so on. And what is our best shot at commending to them the Christian faith? And we looked at an exposition of a book like the Gospel of Mark, or we looked at a framework like a 2 Ways to Live or a Bridge to Life type situation, and we landed on, I think, what was at first the most obscure idea. I think we put it up on the whiteboard just for the fun of it, the Apostles' Creed, but it really sat with us as for a few reasons. Firstly, I think it's ancient, which I think is a feature, not a bug. That we're drawing on this. I don't know what it is about it being ancient, but I think the thinness of modern life, the thinness of our cultural references and so on, I think it's enormously attractive to get back beyond that, and to get away from the hustle of trying to present Christianity as if it was invented last Tuesday in our language and our thought forms, and to say, actually, no, this is strange. And so the Apostles' Creed kind of wrestled our evangelical hearts to the ground and forced us to speak about, Mary and Jesus ascending into hell and the one holy Catholic Church and so on. So we had a ball. That was the thinking, to let people into the weirdness and glories of the Christian faith.
Yes, you go very hard on the weirdness, Rory. Very hard on the weirdness, and that thrills my heart because my book, which has just come out, finishes with saying, "Church, be weird." That's my final word is be weird, and I'm noticing that a few other people are catching the weirdness bug. Why are you not doing the smooth kind of stepping stones from the non-Christian world into the Christian world, trying to make things as smooth as possible, no disjunctions? Instead, spoiler alert. Well, it's the first page, so it's not much of a spoiler. You start with demons.
Yes,
this is weird beyond measure. Why do you do this?
Yeah, that was it. So we set ourselves this task to think, as we were kind of having fun with thinking about doing the Apostles' Creed, and there's a quote, I think it's in the book, where Francis Schaeffer once, at least reportedly, used to speak on angels as one of his first evangelistic talks, and the theory there was that if you start speaking about God and sin, people hear you talking about morality. Whereas if you talk about angels, suddenly they're like, oh, he's talking about spiritual truths. And so we thought, what's the highest degree of difficulty dive to begin a book with for a non-Christian? But what's the thing that even Christians, well, some, not all Christians, but even like Western, slightly shy, weird Christians in the Jonathan Haidt sense of the word, what's the thing that they find hardest? And probably that Jesus did exorcisms, and he didn't do one or one and a half. He did like tons of them. And so we thought, look, if anyone's still with us after chapter 1, they're in a kind of training at altitude thing. But yeah, that is really a real growing conviction that I certainly have, and I think I wrote a gushing review of your book, partly because
You called it swashbuckling. Swashbuckling. I haven't gotten over that yet. I keep telling everybody.
Thank you. That's good. Yeah, I do. I just think that one of my prayers for the book, certainly with friends and so on, is that they would have that kind of Narnia wardrobe opening experience of just walking into a seemingly normal situation, and suddenly it's a wardrobe that leads to another world. And I think the Christian faith is at its best that we wanted people to say, look, don't just here's the door, and until you've ascended to the idea that this is a door and you really ought to walk through it, we wanted to say, look, come and have a poke around, get a sense of what's going on here in all its weirdness and in all its kind of glory and strangeness and so on. Because I think that is to me, I think there's many reasons I stay Christian, not least that I desperately want to put my sins, have my sins forgiven, and love Jesus and love the Father. All sorts of reasons I stay Christian. One of them is that the longer I'm a Christian, the more spacious I experience the Christian faith as. I just think, man, this is unbelievable. My experience of reading scripture is like that it's just like this. It's just door after door after door. We're doing Leviticus at the moment, and I feel like I'm becoming a Christian all over again, because I'm like, what's going on here? And that's a great delight that I have in being Christian, and I guess wanted to share some of that with friends and family.
What's been your experience of that? So, I mean, people are starting to read the book and give you feedback on, okay, you start with the exorcism, which brilliantly allows you then to talk cosmologically and to talk about the triple-decker universe, the heavens and the earth and under the earth, which actually gives you, it's not as weird as it sounds to start with an exorcism, because it enables you to go to 30,000 feet and do this sort of nosebleed, vision of the cosmos. But what kind of feedback are you getting on that?
Yeah, there's probably two different types there. So there's people like yourself, Steve McAlpine's written a review, and Sam Chan's got something in the works and so on. I think that people who are kind of practitioners, who their day job, the thing on their passport is evangelist or something, and I think that's been there's been this kind of shared sense of something in this ballpark is what ought to be happening, that we should be leaning into all that Christianity is, and this is the time to, arc up the weirdness rather than walk away from it. Then, in terms of it going out to its intended audience, which is, I'd say the intended audience is really a secular, Western or Westernized, educated, not crazy educated. It's not a difficult book, I don't think, but I don't want it to be patronizing either. I want to just have a conversation with the kind of friends that we live with. And certainly I've put it into the hands of a number of people, and they've read it. It's short. It's like 66 pages. And one of the things we did in the writing process was just wanted to be, and this is possibly putting my head on the block for any other reviewer, but we wanted it to be relentlessly interesting. Yeah. Like on every page, I thought I want something here that you're in bed and you think, oh, one more. And I wanted people to have the pleasant surprise of thinking, oh, I think I'm nearly at the end of this chapter. I might as well keep going, because I think it really is a book we want read. We've had some warm receptions. I've got a story. I've got a story about someone who has become a Christian recently, though I don't think I can claim credit for the book. So you can give that edifying story at the end.
Tell me that story at the end, because I do want to press into, how are people coming to faith today? But it does remind me that this whole I want to grab the reader by the throat thing. I was talking to Rebecca McLaughlin last year on this channel and asking her, how do you keep someone's attention for a 200-page book? And she said, you never keep someone's attention for a 200-page book. You've got one more page, right? And you've just got to get them to turn one more page, and you've got to do the trick 200 times. That's how you get them. And we need more books like that, because I just gave up on a book the other day that was just so vanilla and just so bland, and so it's just like, do you not realize that people's attention spans are sort of 7 seconds long?
Yeah. And so I certainly think when I was younger and starting out in writing and preaching, I think I was always preaching at least partly to the invisible Bible college lecturer at the back of the church.
Yes.
I think that's a very important habit to get out of if you're if you're at all keen on evangelism. It's the thing. I'm relentlessly about you, and I want you to keep reading, keep listening, and like go to a Bruce Springsteen concert. I think that's the thing about Bruce Springsteen. He plays for 3 hours, and he's still got that working class sense that he's come to do a job, and his job is to work for you. And I think as evangelists, that's not a bad way to think about it.
All killer, no filler. That's I'll put that on your next book. Yeah, bangers, just floor fillers. So I think your book absolutely achieves that, but it achieves that not by being predictable, and not by being a smooth introduction to, if you believed this about the natural world, then you might as well believe this, and then it's a hop, skip, and a jump to that, and it's not that at all. And what I also appreciate about the book is you honored the art form, as it were, because someone is going to give you an afternoon of their time. Someone is going to give you a hearing, and they are going to sit down, so you can take your time to a degree. You can take your time to take them to Legion, and then do a triple-decker universe thing, and then walk them through the creed. And I think sometimes with books, I think evangelists misunderstand the medium, because people are invested in a much different way if they're listening to a book or reading a book, as opposed to watching a YouTube video. With a YouTube video, absolutely you've got 12 seconds to grab them. With a book, someone's paid good money, and they're going to sit down and they're going to give you time. And so I thought that was another good thing about the book, and a good thing about introing your book with that. And I think people who misunderstand why you begin with Legion might not be honoring what the art form of the book is, as opposed to another, because it's not a tract and it's not a video. You've got time with people.
Yeah, that's right. They've decided that's right to spend their afternoon with you. And I don't know how many books does a person read in a lifetime. They've chosen that one of them is going to be yours. And there is that's a beautiful thing. I think there's a whole kind of theology of art in there as well, where I think that as Christians and evangelists, we ought to honor and be good guests in the art forms we inhabit, and advance their cause or whatever. I think I think Flannery O'Connor used to say that you can't write with the church looking over your shoulder, by which she did not. She's a very Orthodox Catholic, but what she did mean by that was that she says the novelist's job is not to tell you what ought to happen, but what did happen. Mm-hmm. That the novelist's job is to see the world. And I think say in a novel, which this book is not a novel, but in a novel, the novel that we all enjoy is the novel where you say, oh, spotto, I've seen that. I've met that person. I've noticed that grass feels like that. And I think honoring the forms that we're in is a really important thing.
So you decided to do a kind of a dogmatics and outline. So you sort of give a hat tip to Karl Barth early on, and say, that's another good way of following up on the creed. What did you find most helpful in kind of preparing a book on the creed?
Yeah, I think it was that thing. I think the creed it does it does keep you on the straight and narrow. Like, it means that it constrains you from being idiosyncratic and eccentric. That it's just like here's the thing that almost every Christian of almost any tribe ought to be able to say. So there's kind of a mere kind of orthodoxy to it. But funnily enough, I think these two things aren't mutually incompatible. It forces a certain amount of like whimsy on you. But it's just, okay. So there's just all these curiosities in the creed, like, jumping from Jesus' birth to his death, and mentioning the resurrection twice, his resurrection and the resurrection of the dead. And there's just all these things there where, if you're really paying attention, it forces you to do, given our audience, it forces you to do theology in public. And I think public is a really great place to do theology. Mm-hmm. It is interesting that the New Testament is largely driven by intra-Christian theological controversies. and yet it's the book that kind of commends the gospel to the world. And I know this reference may absolutely sink its credibility, but when Boris Johnson was at the Spectator many years ago, he one of his journalists was off to interview the new Archbishop. Maybe it was Justin or anyway, whoever it was, sent off to interview them, and the journalist said, "What should I ask them about?" And he stopped. He said, "Why don't you ask them about transubstantiation? What's going on there?" And I thought that would have been a great interview, to talk to a bishop about transubstantiation rather than, the minimum wage or
the housing crisis.
Wouldn't that be great? And to hear, and I noticed also when the Pope was visiting one of the Eastern European countries, there was a priest there, a Eastern Orthodox priest with a little sign up, protesting the filioque, their failure to or the addition of that. I thought, fantastic. That would be a really, but because I do, I mean, it could get acrimonious, but I think it is I think one of the things that my unbelieving friends don't get to see or see enough of is how interesting Christianity is.
Yes.
Just that I don't think they, and when they see it, that there's these, we just a standard issue church here in Perth, but at staff meetings, we'll talk about, agonize over theology or kind of have a crack at keeping our Greek alive or these things. I just think people don't know that there's this world where we're having this conversation and wondering what demons are and so on. I do think that's all just really interesting.
Yeah, the strange new world of the Bible, and therefore kind of evangelism is, I'm always saying it's like inviting people into a cathedral that makes no sense to the outsider, as opposed to standing on the outside of the cathedral in the tourist information booth with a little leaflet and a thumbnail sketch of how the cathedral works. That is typical bog standard evangelism, in our tribe, as opposed to yank people into the cathedral and just try to wow them with the weirdness.
I'm going to steal that and use that. My standard go-to for that same thing, I think, has been to say that if you got invited to a Seder with a Jewish family, imagine if you got there and that family said, "Oh, you're a Gentile. Well, we won't do that tonight. We'll just we'll order fish and chips and we'll watch the football and so on." You think, "Oh, I'm kind of keen." Now, you wouldn't want them to be, you wouldn't want them to be, you wouldn't want to be embarrassed that you didn't know what to touch when and how the meal worked and how long it was supposed to go for. So you want them to be hospitable, but not to change what's going on, because that's what I came for. Right. And I think we want our church services and our community events to be seeker hospitable, but not seeker directed.
Yes, yeah. It's like Christmas as well. I've spent a lot of Christmases in somebody else's culture, and maybe they'll serve me a side dish that I quite like, and they'll explain their peculiar traditions, but I don't want them to do my traditions. I've come to their Christmas to do it their kind of way. So that's. Yeah, that is absolutely central, I think, to what evangelism ought to be, and especially in an age in which Gen Z do not understand why, people, Gen Xers like us, we're used to doing evangelism in terms of, let me tell you what Christianity has to say to the debt crisis, or let me tell you what Christianity has to say to the phenomenon of Pokemon Go, or whatever it is. And we're constantly trying to sort of build bridges from, hey, the thing that we're kind of like that. And the one thing I think younger people tend to think Christians might have an idea about is Christianity. So why don't we just cut the other bait and switch nonsense and talk about the one thing we know about, which is,
So true. Yeah, absolutely.
In your book, you don't do classical apologetic moves. So you don't come with an armful of arguments for belief in God. In fact, at one point you say there are these are some of the reasons that we think belief in God is reasonable. But in the end, arguments about God only get you so far. They are, as biblical scholar N.T. Wright has put it, like pointing a flashlight towards the sky to see if the sun is shining. So if you're not going to go the argument route, what route are you going to go?
Yeah, I think that, and I should say as well, I think there's probably a gifting thing there. I just think there are people who God, by his Spirit, have gifted, and, and to hear them in doing apologetic work, and even classic apologetic work, like, arguing for the existence of God, can be very compelling, and all power to them. And partly I think it is a gifting thing that that doesn't seem to be the thing that I do fantastically. And there's also, I think, there a kind of a truth in advertising thing where, I think it's only a minority of us that came to Christ through classical apologetic, not no one, most people, but a minority, I think. And almost none of them is it the reason that we're still here. But we, having had, and I often observed this actually, I don't know if you can resonate with this, that sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll say, the reason I became a Christian is because the argument for the resurrection of Jesus was persuaded me. But then when you're talking to them, they can't actually rehearse the argument for the resurrection of Jesus, or haven't recalled it. And I think what's going on there, and I think partly they've kind of, a theodicy for evil or whatever, partly they've kind of maybe left that's got them in, and then they've come into that Narnia experience of this whole world. Partly I wonder whether what they were sometimes responding to was a credible person seems to believe this, and that's good enough for me.
Right.
And so I do think even, and now I'm absolutely Jesus rose from the dead bodily, essential to the gospel and the inspired word of God, all kind of thing. But just saying that in the actual experience of being Christian, it's weird. It's a bit like marriage. Marriage is so different when you're in it. The things that you think will dominate marriage, like the sexual expression and so on, kind of take these more modest proportions, and then you just discover all these surprises that, we get to get a bit older together, and then you have to bury your mum, and I didn't know that would impact you like that. And there's just, what I mean? It is different from the inside. And I think my sense is I just want to get, if someone's done me the honor of having read this book, I want them to have seen as far inside as they can, and to experience how the Christian life is actually lived by and thought of by the person that they're people that they know.
Yes, yeah, and it's I stole this analogy from a friend who works with Al Masira, which is a series of 13 TV episodes that introduce Christ to Muslims as the Messiah, Al Masira, and in their training, they often say, look, we're not building stepping stones from the Muslim house to the Christian house. We're just opening up the doors of the Christian house, and it's an act of hospitality. And our evangelism is hospitality. Come on over. I know it looks a bit weird. There are some squabbling kids in the backyard. Sorry about that. And you won't understand it to begin with. But at that stage, it is hospitality that is doing the work, rather than the chain of argumentation that you're able to make. And that then enfranchises the whole church body in the work of evangelism. Because if the work of evangelism is fundamentally hospitality, if it's love, well, then the body knows how to work together in love. If the fundamental aspect of evangelism is a chain of arguments, well, there's only a very few. I can't do it. Suddenly, you and me are kind of out of the game. Well, who's in the game? Very few people, and it suddenly becomes, very much a spectator sport for the rest of Christendom.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, that's I think we do see that in our church. I think you see it in lots of churches that that's a lovely word, an enfranchisement, when you say, look, the Sam Chan's things about mixing those communities, that your people need to meet my people, that it's kind of dinner, coffee, and so on. And it's hugely significant to move into those kind of plausibility communities where there's these massive, and then you do see people really come alive in a church when they work out that the thing that they've got is a thing that can promote and advance the gospel, because what they've got is a bunch of mates that get together on Tuesday night to read the Bible or whatever it is. Absolutely fantastic.
You say at one point, the Christian faith is less like an object in the world whose existence is accepted by some and denied by others. It's more like a pair of glasses through which you look at the rest of life, the universe, and everything. So what are the implications of that for how you go about evangelism?
Yeah, that's really good, because I think it is... obviously, I think that's true. That in terms of the actual experience of being Christian is a way of looking at the world and a way of being in the world, as much as a set of propositions. And one of the reference in the title, "The World Next Door," is to an old book called "The Universe Next Door," which I'm sure no one's read recently, but it was quite an important book back in the day, and its contention was that the Muslim next door to you doesn't just have some propositions that are different from your propositions, but they have a universe in their head that's different from the universe in your head. And so if you have a proposition like God exists or abortion is permissible, they almost always come out of a whole way of seeing the world.
Yes.
Values around freedom and empiricism and whatever else, and so I think part of that is that we having people making our communities accessible to the people that we're evangelizing means that I think that as you think, this group of people sing songs to Jesus on Sunday, and they seem to meet in homes during the week and read a very difficult text, and meals seem to move around as people are pregnant and so on, is all part of the infrastructure that leads you to make those kind of ethical stances on the permissibility or not of abortion, or the how much you would care about a refugee trying to come to your nation or whatever. And so I do think, as we've been saying, I think and again, I want a rigorous thing. I don't want someone to feel manipulated or obliged to think, these people have been so lovely to me, I can possibly not follow through and become the thing that they seem to want me to become. And I think you can build a robust evangelistic church life where those two things hold together really admirably, where you can keep have people in that what the ancient church would have called a kind of a catechumen situation, where they're working it out, and you can create that space for them to do that without thinking that eventually one of those meals is going to be the one that we then come and say, now you probably should become a Christian.
Yes. Yeah. So it is an act of hospitality, and they can, like if you were in the Seder meal, you might be a fringe member, but I guess you get drawn ever more towards the center of things. What place? Go on.
That must be how the kind of, which is a 1990s phenomenon, but it has kicked on of the kind of alpha and its heirs and successors. I think the heart of that was that methodology of food, humans, and time. And if you've got gospel truth happening in that context, there's a guy over here called Dominic Steele. I don't know if you've come across.
Yep.
He's got this kind of cheeky bit of maths. I think it's just that something about how the stats go up. It's all about just keeping someone as long as you possibly can. So once you've done that course, you say, do the next course, and then the next course, and the next course, and he's got some mathematical formula, be cheeky, but I think it is true that playing that long game in a warm Christian context is very hard to resist.
Does that make you think of a possible incarnation of the world next door? I mean, the Apostles' Creed was that, in that, in the year 200, I guess, this is kind of the creed is kind of coming out of the catechumens, and they're getting ready for being baptized on Easter Sunday, and they would they would have about 120 to 150 hours of instruction in all sorts of areas. But the creed was obviously at the heart of things. Does it make you think, well, maybe there's a 13-week course that we could do with people?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing, because I think the having written the book for unbelievers, one of the places that it seems to have started to get some traction is in confirmation classes, because it's a book that you could use. We didn't think of that at the time, but it does suit that kind of confirmation process. And yeah, that's really interesting. We do have a course that we homespun course here in Perth called Taste and See, or the Gospel in 4 Meals, where we do these 4 meals that are based around the Christian faith and share something of the creation to new creation story in that context. And that's always a very worthwhile endeavor. So maybe we should build onto that as sort of, having heard this, why don't you sit down and go the catechumen's path and learn these things?
Yeah, do it in Lent, do it over 6 weeks maybe, or who knows. So, I give that for free. Consultancy as well, Rory. Spoiling you. So, I think one of the features of the book, I don't think you're just trying to get people to turn the page in the way that you write. I think you are trying to write beautifully. So, for instance, you say at one point, music, books, and lovemaking, whiskey, potatoes, and butter, the sound of a cricket ball when it finds the center of the bat and is smashed for a 6, the laughter of children, the smell of sautéing onions, the architecture of Gaudi, the whomp of a door closing on a European car, the sky at dusk, old men getting the giggles, children playing chasey, one of Bach's cello suites, the scent of wood fires, the feel of water. All of these are invitations to praise, incitements to worship. They are an opportunity to give thanks to the God who made them. So you are using beauty, you are using craft in order to open people's eyes to beauty. Why?
Yeah, so that's me. That's kind of your poor man's G.K. Chesterton. Trying to channel that spirit of that kind of. I think in Chesterton there is that kind of robust embrace of the created order that God's got us in, and he has the small poem, I can't remember it now, but about the here dies another day, and you've given me 2. Like, how is that possible? How is it that there's, how do we get 2 of these, not just 1? I think that's probably underused in Christian discipleship, as in that part of what keeps one going as a Christian is you think, oh, my father spun the sun around again, and I like that chill, and that's to be more attentive to the world that we're in, and that, I guess, that particular passage is a kind of Chestertonian attempt to say to someone, this is what the world could look like with these glasses on.
Yes.
Because your intuition, which I think everyone has, your intuition that when you see a sunset or laugh with your friends, or a small child draws a picture that you owe someone thanks, that someone is owed thanks and praise for that. And we've got the beach here it's a western shoreline, and so you see the sun set at the beach, and it's like almost invariably stunning to go to the beach in Perth and watch the sun set. And if you look at that and say, oh, gee, that's beautiful, allow yourself to get stolen by that. If someone said to you, oh, isn't it annoying, those synapses, they just kind of they do that, don't they? It's some evolutionary kind of thing, and we're trying to fix it. It wouldn't only be annoying, it would be untrue.
Right.
Like I think we just think that's not true. It is true. That's something beautiful and transcendent just happened, and it's bigger than me, and it's enough that it's that I don't need to look at that sunset and say, oh, I would have done it a bit better. You just, and I think that is a certainly a thing that I enjoy about being a Christian, that I get to thank someone for it. Imagine living life in a world like this and not being able to thank anyone for it. And I think it is actually one of the, in its own funny way, one of the sharper edges of the gospel, a la Romans chapter 1, is that we did not give him thanks and praise. That the the great crime for which we're on trial is, who does that? Who lives in a world like this and then gives credit to idols, or who lives rent free in God's universe and not giving him the honor that's due his name. So I think it's simultaneously attractive, because you never meet anyone who doesn't have a beautiful experience, even if their beautiful experience isn't a kind of high-minded middle-class Western one. Someone could always, it'll be something like the roar of an engine or whatever. I think we're quite, in the best sense of the word, quite vulnerable at that point to God, because you're kind of in a corner.
Yes. And therefore, I think you've got two tasks. If evangelism is what we're saying it is, you've got two tasks, which is to awaken people to the weirdness of Christianity, but actually to awaken them to the weirdness of the world. And then to say, but through the lens of this weird Jesus thing, suddenly, things go into in Technicolor and things come into focus. Yeah.
There's a lovely passage in Marilyn Robinson's book, Gilead, where she, it's from the perspective of this old pastor he's looking at his very young son, because he married old, and he says something like, it's kind of written in like letters to his son. He says, I see you there. He's playing with the hose in the front yard. He says, I see you there whooping and jumping as any sane person should do in the presence of something as miraculous as water.
Yeah.
And you think, if say we lived on a planet without water and someone went to another planet and came back and brought back water, you would not believe it. Right. That doesn't make no sense. How is it that I can see entirely through it and there's no spaces in it? And if I get into it, it holds me up, but I feel like I'm heavier than it. And it's just the miracle of, and as in Gilead, the same person is the kid who's jumping around and looking at what water does in the sunlight. That's sanity.
Yes. Tell me what you think. What first of all, what do you hope for this book to do? And more broadly, what is it possible for books to do more generally? But start off with The World Next Door.
Yeah, good question. So I think for The World Next Door, I would love to get it into as many hands of unbelievers as possible. As I said, we've written it to be read, and I think as you're alluding to, books create a particular kind of space. They're not, they're kind of more demanding than a YouTube thing or a podcast. I mean, podcasts are interesting because they're so long form. They're kind of an interesting. The internet's always accused of being ADHD, and it sort of is that. But then you've got Jordan Peterson speaking for 90 minutes, and
Joe Rogan for 4 hours, and
exactly, yeah. So there's an interesting thing there. But I think books do create that particular space where if they're written well, you've killed your darlings, you've got rid of a whole lot of extraneous stuff, and just really tried to work each sentence to do as much heavy lifting as it can. And so I think there is a space for books. It's probably a different space from the time of the Reformation, where books were doing the work of blogs and tractarians and so on, and being this highly subversive. You can hear what Luther said, even though technically he's not really your priest, but away you go. And I think books have now occupy that slightly more patient space in people's lives, where they've walked away from the noise, and so I think I suspect they'll have a more modest thing going forward. I would be like on a spectrum more of a book person than not a book person, and I notice how much I consume audibly these days. Just vast tracts of stuff comes into my ears, and so books have had this much more kind of charming, almost a kind of sacred time quality in that Charles Taylor sense of the word, that you're suddenly making this space that's very different to the spaces we occupy. So yeah, I think there'll be space for long books that earn their length. I think there's lots of space for that. But I think as people are committed to commending the gospel, I think what we need is more books with people understand what it is to have sat down with someone else's book and to take that opportunity to lay it out in beautiful and true prose.
Brilliant. Well, and I think your book has done that. I do think it is beautifully written. I do think it grabs the reader. It does not shy away from the weirdness of Christianity, but it also awakens the reader to the weirdness of the world that they're in, and shows them the gospel in this cathedral-like structure, which I think is brilliant. And I think it's a great book to read and pass on to a friend. So I heartily recommend that people run, don't walk, and get a copy of The World Next Door. Other ways that people can keep up with you, Rory?
Well, they could. I'm at providencechurch.org.au. I'm on Twitter, and that's probably where I mainly hang out on the internet. We're about to start a blog. We're going to blog like it's 2007.
Hey. Happier times.
And so that's a place where people could find us.
Awesome. I hope people do that. But Rory Shiner, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Glenn. Great to talk.